The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
Kick off the 2020 NCAAs on Wednesday, March 18th at the Barn at Cowboy Jackson, downtown Minneapolis. Presented by J-Rob Intensive Camps and Track Wrestling, the 7-7 pregame party will feature 7 high-profile guests with connections to the wrestling community, including business people, entertainers, athletes, and coaches. Dan Gable, 1972 Olympic gold medalist, 2-time NCAA champion, and 15-time national champion head coach, is the first booked guest. The full lineup of featured guests will be revealed via J-Rob Intensive Camps and Track Wrestling social media in the coming weeks. Event proceeds will be donated to Take Down Cancer, an initiative of the Randy Shaver Cancer Research and Community Fund. Shane Sparks of Track Wrestling and the Big Ten Network will serve as the event MC. Sparks will interview each of the 7 guests for 7 minutes, the length of the collegiate wrestling match, mirroring the format of Track Wrestling's popular 7 Minutes Q&A series. Come celebrate the sport of wrestling with friends while supporting a great cause. Tickets purchased online include a complimentary drink for those 21 and up. Ticket quantities are limited, so reserve your space now for this exciting kickoff party. And for more information, go to 7in7party.com and get your tickets today. And welcome back again to the Short Time Wrestling Podcast, wrestling fans. I am Jason Bryant. Today we will continue with the interview with Pat Pecora, the winningest coach in college wrestling history, as he finished the season with 618 wins for the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown, one of the historical powerhouses in Division II wrestling. Before we get going with that, would like to shout out Tony DeMarco, the latest team member of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. You can do that by joining the team at matttalkonline.com/join the team. He will be getting a free preview guide. Yes, the pre-sale for the preview guide that I put out, or the guide as I call it, available at wrestlingpreviewguide.com/JB. That is going to save you $5 off the sticker price. Now, if you want to get this as part of a subscription or as part of your contributions free each year, you can become a team member by contributing to the Matt Talk Podcast Network, again at matttalkonline.com/join the team. Or for this year, for new subscribers, and I say subscribers, endorsements, people that are actually going to pay the subscription fee to my Rockfin channel, ROKFIN.com/MattTalkOnline. If you sign up now, between now and St. Patty's Day, you will get a free preview guide on top of the content you get on the Rockfin platforms. A lot of stuff over there. IA Wrestle just jumped on board. PA Power Wrestling has also put out some stellar stuff. Of course, you know, the quote-unquote greatest mind in wrestling. Willie puts his high school rankings over there, and some other interesting tidbits from Ben Askren, Jordan Burroughs, Izzy Martinez does some cool stuff over there. A lot of wrestling content starting to populate out on Rockfin. Give that a shot. And if you do and you endorse Matt Talk Online, boom, you're going to get a free preview guide. You have to make sure you opt in to your email so I know how to get it to you. That being said, let's continue on with episode 598 of the Short Time Wrestling Podcast, and we complete our interview with Pat Pecora of Pitt-Johnstown. One thing that's always kind of, I've been interested, and you'd mentioned already, is Jody and John Strittmatter. Because after Jody won, he transferred to Iowa. What was that decision like? How hard was that for you, or how much did you push him to say, yeah, do it?
Easy, very easy decision. Very easy decision, because you got to look at it the way I look at it. It's my family. They're my children. They're my sons. You know, what would you want for your son? You want the best for your son. You know, and I talked about this a lot. But Jody, you knew Jody was special right from the beginning. He was a Pennsylvania state champ. His brother was here, and you know, he was a local boy, and you know, we were gonna get him, and we redshirted him his freshman year, and then his sophomore year he wins a national title. For God's sake, you know, it's his freshman. He's a freshman though, but he wins a national title as a redshirt freshman. So I knew, you know, this kid, and then with the Hasselrig rule, so to speak, in effect, I knew that I don't want to hold him back. You know, this kid can compete on another level. I've seen it. You know, so. Next year, even before it started, I said, Jody, you let me know where you want to go, and I'll make sure the coach knows, and we'll go to some tournaments, you know, where they can see you wrestle. And so anyway, he said, I want to go to Iowa. He didn't have nowhere he wanted to go to Iowa. It wasn't anywhere else. And and then when the word got out that he was leaving, man, I had some, John Smith he'll still get me today and say, yep, you didn't send me Jody's Strittmatter. That's the reason we didn't win a national title. And Bobby Douglas, who went to West Liberty, I knew Bobby Douglas real well, from doing camps and clinics with him. He was at Iowa State. He wanted him. But anyway, Jody didn't even think of anybody else. He wanted Iowa. So at the time, Zaleski was the coach, and I said, Jody, we'll go to Midlands this year. I took the team to Midlands, and I said, I was always at the Midlands. We'll go to Midlands. That's when you applied to go to Midlands. We qualified our team to go to Midlands, and guess who wins the Midlands? Jody Strittmatter wins the Midlands tournament at 125. And so I talked to Zaleski, and he, out there, and of course he was very, very interested. I said, well, he should win another national. So then, we go through the season, and then, he doesn't just win the national title. He pins everybody, and then he almost falls the guy in the finals and gets the outstanding wrestler. So, he's ready to move on. There was never any doubt in my mind. And I did take some flack for letting him go. It's the other way around. I was fighting to give him the release and let him go. There were actually some people at the university who thought I was nuts. What are you doing? What do you let him go to Iowa for? I said, because it's time for him to move on. We can't do it anymore. These young men, just think of him as your son. What would you do with your son when you want him to be the best he can be? And so they were all fighting for Jody. In fact, wherever Jody went, probably would have won a national title that next year. Because Iowa and Oklahoma were right in the hunt, and Iowa ended up winning. I think Jody might be the only wrestler who's wrestled on the Division II national championship team, and then the next year wrestled on the Division I national championship team. So no, Jody went to Iowa with our blessing, and I was happy for him because it was another great chapter in his life, and so, you just do that for your son. That's all. It wasn't even, I never even thought about it. It wasn't even, even a question mark in my mind. And then, good deeds, don't go unnoticed. We ended up getting a young man by the name of Brandon Knoll, who was, who didn't come here at first because Jody was here, and then he ended up transferring in, and he had 3 years of eligibility left. He was a 3-time All-American and national champ himself his senior year. So, and he's a great young man. He's ended up being Jason Knoll's coach, and he coaches at Katanning. He was here Friday night, with everybody. And so I would do that with any young man. And I tell young men now, I said, hey, if you come to our, because everybody thinks D1 do. I said, you come to our school and you win a Division II national title, and you want to move on, I'll be the first one to give me who you want me to call. And I said, we'll get you wherever you want to go. So.
Yeah, there were a couple coaches that did that. I know that Bucky had also had a couple guys.
Bucky did it all the time.
They would go to North Dakota State and then transfer to Minnesota.
Right, and Bucky and I were really tight because Bucky was a PA boy, and so he's from Cannon McMillan, and so every time I'd go to national, it was all Bucky. Man, he was the best, and he was a character if you ever knew Bucky. But we always hit it off because we were Pennsylvania boys, and so he had North Dakota State. God, they were tough. You thought, these teams, Cal State Bakersfield. You look at the teams T.J. Kerr had in Nebraska, Omaha with Mike Denny and, the Davids, Central Oklahoma Broncos. God almighty, you're talking about legendary coaches, but their teams were tough, just hard, tough teams, just loaded. They were these Division II teams at those days were Division I programs, to say, they had Division I level coaching and, competition and training partners and things like that. There was just some real tough, and you could see it by the way Division II kids were doing in Division I tournament. Imagine that the Division II tournament was qualifying 24 spots, 23, 24, 22 spots a year at the Division I national tournament. That's how many points that Division II was scoring out there at Division I national tournament. So, but that was, like you said. But once that went away, then we had to change our focus, and I have to tell kids that, hey, if you want to go that route, you could start here and do the Jody Strittmatter thing. That's what I tell them. I said that's the best way to do it, rather than go the other way around. Come here, win a couple of national titles, then they know you can wrestle in college. They know you're tough, and you won't have trouble getting to any school you want. If God blessed you with that, then they find out how tough Division II is.
And what's interesting is Jody and John have actually, their names are still prevalent in wrestling, obviously with the Young Guns Club there and all the kids that they put out to not just Division I but D2. But every time you hear Strittmatter, UPJ comes up, so it's a way that the school also gets mentioned with both of those guys. And
totally.
What's it been like for you to see the development of Young Guns under those guys?
It was amazing, and so I because I was there at the beginning, and just couldn't happen to a better person than Jody and John. I mean, just and their brother Joe's involved, and Jody's wife. I mean, it's a family business, so to speak, but. These people, I was just Mr. and Mrs. Strittmatter came Friday night to watch the event. You're talking about good, solid, salt of the earth people, the farm people. I mean, they grew up, on a farm, and Mr. and Mrs. Strittmatter, God, those two. I mean, that it's just the epitome of just what. Hard work, strong moral values, the high commitment level. It's just, these people just, they just expound with it, and that comes from that family, the mother and the father, and just a strong farm work ethic, and and that's that area up there. And this area around here, there is a strong work ethic, and it's sound moral principles stuff, and kind of an old-fashioned type of work ethic, and you can't replace that. So I always knew, Jody, I always thought of him as being the guy to take over Pitt-Johnstown, but geez, now he's got Young Guns, he's making too much money, he can't do this. He's got a real nationwide thing, but he still helps me out a lot. He's one of our assistants, and when I got offered the Maryland job, Jody was the first guy I called and said, hey, would you go to Maryland with me if I take the position? He said, sure, and he would have been my top assistant down there. So I have a lot of respect for Jody and John and just their whole family, and I'm so happy for them. And there's no one better, no one deserves it any more than those people.
If you're talking about colorful characters, and I want to circle this back to that coaching fraternity that you shared there before North Dakota State went Division I, South Dakota State with Mike Denny still at Division II after what happened in Omaha and Maryville starting a program, but. I've just heard stories about every single one of these characters, and they're Mike Denny is a vastly different personality than Bucky Mon.
God! It was like that. I said, "Here's Mike Denny still like it." I used to always kid Mike Denny. I said, Mike Denny puts a suit on, he looks like president of the United States. I said, I put a suit on, I look like a gangster. I said, that's the difference between, Mike Denny. Mike Denny, tall, 6'3", come in, good looking guy, had hair, all the way back, slicked it back, and just a man of integrity. And, Mike Denny never swore, and, just a very religious man. He's just a good person. I mean, just has that smile on his face soon as you meet him, had that special handshake like the gladiator handshake, and just he reminds you of a CEO, Mike Denny, and then you had the rough talking, Bucky, Bucky's like 5'2", just the opposite of Mike Denny, and Bucky had a very colorful mouth and some very colorful stories, and they were my two men. I mean, they were two mentors of mine. I'm telling you, I loved them both because they were both so opposite. And but they both had such great qualities, that they made a positive. They both made positive impacts on young men. I mean, I mean, Bucky came from Pennsylvania. He was a Pennsylvania state champ. He was a NAI champ. I think he won the Division I national. Yeah, he won the Division I national title. Bucky was a good man. He really was. He come across real hard and tough and a little ornery at times. But you know what? I to this day I love Bucky Mo. I had a blast, and I always enjoyed, seeing him. I enjoy seeing his kids. Jack Moan was the coach at Northern, Colorado when we won the national title, and I still see them. There's a younger coach, my younger son Brent. Sometimes at the national tournament and things like that. So, but yeah, those were some characters, and T.J. Carroll. Boy, him, and it just was a host of them. And they just we had a lot of good times.
And you're still there 44 years, and we look at the evolution of what's happened. We've seen a lot of schools reclassify from the NAI into Division II. We've seen really, really good programs like Notre Dame College, Lindenwood, McKendree have come in. But you've also seen coaches come in, like Steve Costanzo at St. Cloud won a national title at Dana College before moving on to St. Cloud State, and they went from a doormat in the Northern Sun to becoming a national power. I think they're at 60-some wins in a row now, and he's a disciple of Denny, as is Mark Bauer at Nebraska Kearney.
I can remember him. So
what is it about coaching in Division II, and you're looking around and seeing the guys that are having success, and those guys are going on to be teachers and high school levels? I mean, what's the most, I guess, gratifying thing you get out of it, and that you've seen maybe your colleagues get out of it?
Well, I think coaching at any level, the most gratifying thing you get out of it is being a positive impact on young people. That's any coach. I think that's their finest hour. When someone returns with their wife and children, and they have a good job, and they're a good husband and a good father and a good employee or a good employer, and they say, "Hey, coach, you know what? And you were a positive impact on my life. I thank you." And that's really what all coaches, I think, value at the highest level. No matter you coach Division I, II, III, coaching any division, it doesn't matter. It's not about the division. It's about the young people that you have an impact on, and it doesn't matter. There's the same young people that are at Division I. They're still human beings at Division II and III. It's not like they're different people or something like that. But so I think that's what any coach wants. And then guys like Steve Costanza, just a great guy. I mean, great person. I respect. Hector. He's been putting team after team out there, and you got to respect that. It's tough. And then and he does it. He does it with the dual meet too. He wins a lot of dual meets, and I always felt that's how you. That's why that was another thing that I'm so. I am proud of this record is because it's about dual meets. And when you were talking about us building the program here, we built the program about the dual meet. The dual meet was the essence, and still is the essence of any program. Whether you're trying to build one, whether you're trying to sustain one, or whether you're trying to get to the next level, your dual meet is the center, the core of wrestling. And that's what coaches always got to remember, that to keep a strong dual meet schedule, to have home matches. And because that's where you're going to develop your base. You're going to develop your fans. You're going to develop your community, your administration, your students, your other athletes. They're going to see you in a dual meet at home. The likelihood that they're going to end up being in nationals is, how many of them, or regionals, but they're going to see a good home dual meet, and that's what is the core of any program. So our program always centered around the dual meets. It still does. I'm a firm believer that the dual meet is the key, is the core of any program, whether it's high school or college. So I always try to tell young coaches, watch that you don't get caught up in doing a lot of tournaments and quads and forget about the dual meet. That's what's tough about right now in college wrestling. You have 16 dates. So I tell young coaches, I try to do you keep 12 dates for dual meets. Try to get 6 home matches, 6 away matches. Then you have 4, dates that you could, maybe have that save one for national duels, and then save one for some multiple duels that you can get in, which I think are great for your team. And then if you want to throw one open in there, fine. I'm not into open tournaments or anything, but I like the dual meet. I'd rather have multiple good the dual meet tournaments where you can still wrestle multiple guys. But the dual meet, it develops your whole team. That's the toughest thing in coaching. The toughest thing in coaching is putting a team out for a dual meet every week, twice a week. That's the hardest part of coaching, trying to keep it together, trying to have a team where you're putting a person who can represent your school in that singlet, no matter what, because it takes a whole team, because you're going to have injuries, you're going to have skin things, you're going to have academic things, you're going to have personal things that, so it takes a whole team to get through the whole season. So nothing to me signifies success of a program like the dual meet. Now, once you do that, of course, regional and national awards will come with it, because you'll develop that and you'll move on. But I think that to build a program, there's where you start. Don't do it the opposite way. Don't try to, develop, tournament teams, because that only takes a couple people, and you think but that's not what sustains a program. That's not what you start with the dual meet, and you keep centered around it. So, but that's where when we talk about, that's why I'm so proud of this as a program. And then it took everybody. It takes a lot of people to do it. It's not just a one-time thing. I mean, look how many young men, put in the blood, sweat, and tears to come up with 617 wins. It took a lot of people involved, hundreds, maybe thousands. So it's not a one-person record. It's a many, many, many young men, and that's who you get to share that with.
617 wins. So I'm going to put you on the spot here, Coach. What do you remember about the first one?
I can't remember the first one. My sports information director asked me that today. So you remember your first match? I said, you know what? I don't. I really don't. I remember the first year. I remember the first year we couldn't put out 10 guys on a lineup. So I would, like I said, I was recruiting out of and it was the days where I would get someone out of the cafeteria that day and weigh them in that night, and so I don't know how we got 4 wins out of it that year, because it was one of those things. But I can remember the year. I remember it being a year where we just had to keep it together, and we had nowhere to practice and that. And so, and I remember turning it around. I remember getting Barry Gress and some real top recruits the next year that started turning the program around. And then it didn't take us long. I mean, with 1981, I think we won our first regional title. And things just started clicking, and then in the late '80s, that's when the Carlton Hasselbeck era, they call it around here, and then we came to the '90s were just kind of the toughest teams we probably ever had, with the Strittmatter era and the Yawners and stuff. So we it's been, but I don't recall. In fact, what our SAD's trying to find it. The first win was, but I'll have to look. I told him I got a bunch of stuff downstairs. I'll have to root around and see what it was.
Now, a couple transitions you'd had to make in your coaching career. One is becoming the athletic director in 2008. I mean, how much more did that add to your plate, and what's it like having to worry about an entire athletics program now than just the 30, 40 guys on your roster?
Well, I tell you what, I remember when our athletic director, retired, and then we went a while there without an athletic director. We was going on months and months and months, and we had gotten a new president, whom I'm telling you is the best, Dr. Spector, the best human being, and just a great guy and a worker. Is a winner, and I knew the first time I met him, I got along with him because he was a winner, and I was like thinking, finally, we got a winner. We got a guy who's going to take this school and run with it. So after a couple months, I get a phone call, and his secretary says, Dr. Spector would like to talk with you. So I go up, and he says, how would you like to be the athletic director? And I said, you know what? Dr. Spector, I don't know if I'm ready to give up coaching yet. I think someday I will like to be an athletic director, but I don't know if I'm ready right now to give up coaching. And he said, oh, no. I don't want you to give up coaching. I want you to do both. So I thought to myself, I like this guy. I said, you want me to do both? I said, I'll do both. And so that was it, and I didn't even have to call my wife. I knew, okay, this is what I wanted to do, and I wanted to do both. And he said, try to do with the other programs like you did with wrestling. And I said, wow, So anyway, I love it. I really do, because I get to mentor young coaches. I get to, try to, and then there's and the thing about this athletic department, people stay here for years. You know what I mean? I've been here 44 years. The men's basketball coach and I, we go back. Oh, heck, he's been here 30-some years. Our baseball coach, Todd Williams, has been here 30 years. I mean, people come here, they stay, And so, and then I get to hire the new coaches and, even the new, get a trainer or I love the fact of trying to find winners. And I think I have a good feel for that when I meet somebody and interview somebody, whether this person's a winner or not. And we have a great department now. I got a great assistant athletic director she was a former volleyball player here, and I knew her name's Abby Gearhart, and I knew when that job opened up, I called her, boom, I knew who to get, and so I love that part of it. And I just like this whole weekend we had our big night. Friday night was our alumni night, and then the women and men's basketball team, they had their alumni weekend on Saturday, and then our baseball teams in South Carolina, this weekend playing, and I'm keeping up with all of them, sending them texts, hey, congratulations. We won everything this weekend. We won, the men's basketball team won, the women's basketball team won, and the men's baseball team won 4 games in their first 4 games of the season. So I love it. I just enjoy the camaraderie and bringing the athletic department now. It's trying to bring them in as a family, trying to make a family out of them to where, and then our SID, Chris Caputo, he's been here for years and just did a great job with, Friday night and stuff. So I enjoy, leading but I'm the type of person that I look for help from everybody, and I'm quick to ask, everyone's opinion. I want everybody's opinion before I make a decision on how everybody feels about this or feels about that, and I'm not a type of the athletic director that, has, multiple meetings and stuff. My meetings are me coming down to your office and sitting in your office and let's talk about your family and let's talk about, hey, what'd you do this weekend? Hey, what about this? What about that? Work comes in, you walk up to lunch with someone else, and that's how I have my meetings. And I walk around the department and run into people and we talk, and so I enjoy that. It now, does it get overwhelming? Yes, like especially right now, the wrestling is in its, right, you're right at the end of the season. You got regionals and nationals coming up. The basketball team's in full swing. The baseball team's starting. The softball teams, getting ready to go. Our track teams, starting to, get going. So a lot of things going on, but again, like I said, I got a great assistant athletic director, Abby Gearhart, and she, I trust her doing anything, and so that's what you have to have. And I have great, assistant. I have great people help me in wrestling. I've never had a full-time assistant coach, but I've always had part-time people or guys who just volunteer. But, Jody Strittmatter is here. I mean, what more can you want? I got Shad Benton, who also helps me with recruiting. He's kind of helps me with the recruiting part. Then I got 2 real young guys, Tyler Reinhardt and Cody Law. They're my guys on the mat. They're here. Tyler Reinhardt, he's here every day. He's the guy that, that's the hand-to-hand guy. He's right there every day, helps the guys whatever they need. He'll lift with them, work out with them. And then I got Cody Law. All 4 of them, help out in every way they could in different ways, but they were all national champs for me, and they all wrestled here. So I got great assistant coaches who were, volunteering and helping me out, and just, whatever we can give them, we give them, and they do it because they love it, and I got, like I said, a great assistant AD, so it works, and I wouldn't want it to go the other way anymore. I thought at first, to move, but no, it actually fits me well. I enjoy doing both of them. So, but it's not allowed anymore. You know that. I got grandfathered in, but after it, I think they either not allowed to do both anymore in the NCAA. But I enjoy it. I really do. And you know what? You mentioned it earlier. We don't have football. If we had football is another animal. Football takes a whole other athletic department. Without football, I think it's doable. Like these schools have football. No, they're ADs. There's no way you can have football and do it, because that's, like I said, football is a whole other animal. And us not having football, I think we have 15 sports. It makes it feasible. It makes it feasible. And with a good assistant in my sport and a good assistant athletic director, I enjoy it. I really do.
We look at the role as an administrator. What have you seen, and where is the direction of Division II wrestling going as a whole? Because we're seeing new programs, we're seeing more qualifiers. It seems like there's kind of almost, I don't want to say a rebirth, because I don't remember if I was not old enough to see the birth of it anyway. But what have you seen about the growth and, I guess, the progress in Division II wrestling?
Amazing. Number one, how tough it is. It's tough. I mean, there are tough teams, and it's very balanced. Very balanced. I mean, anybody could win that national tournament, although St. Cloud's been showing you that they could do it better than anybody else. But very balanced and tough. I'm telling you, you're looking at some tough individuals and some tough teams, and it's. I think Division II is at its peak right now in terms of just how good the individuals are and how good the teams are and how many teams there are. I mean, it's in the 60s now, like you said, and that's amazing in itself, just to have that many programs. And I think the NCAA, is doing a great job in their promotion and their running of an NCAA event. They've made the national tournament in all divisions, which I think is the key. They made the national tournament a highlight event for any young athlete. I mean, when you make it to the national tournament now, I mean, there's bells and whistles. Number one, it's in a venue that's beautiful and great. There's times where we in Division II in the past, I mean, you'd have them at the school, you'd have them at a college. And that was very common. Everybody took turns having a national tournament. Now they have these venues like Division I. We're going back to South Dakota, beautiful venue, and all the venues that we have now in Division II, they're multi, type of complexes that, the motels are sometimes in with the, in there with, the arena, and the NCAA is putting a lot more effort into making it a special experience, and I think that is huge. And then they have the sports festival, which always is a nice event. It can be mind overwhelming at times, but it's I think the NCAA is doing things a lot more now than they have, in the beginning of my career, to make sure that student athletes in Division II and III level are having a positive NCAA experience at the national tournament. So Division II, man, go on.
One event that has always I wanted to talk to you about, and it didn't have any impact on the national championship, didn't have any impact anywhere and other than just a couple of matches on your dual meet schedule, was when you got to bring your team, your wrestling team that you've been coaching since 1976, to Madison Square Garden to compete.
Awesome.
What was that experience like for you and your team?
We haven't been back. We went 2 or 3 years in a row. Fantastic. I loved it, and my team loved it. And the hardest part, we just, it got to the point. That's the only thing I don't about nowadays wrestling. Division I coaches, and I understand it. But you can't. And so there weren't any other Division II teams there, and it was hard to get matches. So the people that would do the Madison Square Garden, they couldn't match us up with anybody because no one wanted to wrestle you. And I understand that. Just it's the same way how you feel about Division III teams and stuff nowadays. It's a shame, but it never was like that before. So I love the Madison Square Garden. My own son got a chance to wrestle in Madison, Square Garden. We would have it was our time to see New York. We would go down early, and the bus driver he would take us on a tour, and then we'd go to see all the sights in New York and then wrestle the matches, and it was a blast. Wrestling in that arena, which is famous and infamous, I should say. But yeah, that was an experience, and then we didn't get. I called up. We didn't get invited back anymore because there's no one for wrestle. It's all Division III basically and Division I teams, and people don't like to cross divisions anymore and wrestle in dual meets. So I missed that thing. That's why we went to the Vegas. I try to have one event a year that's different for the guys. This year we got invited to Rutgers, and that was cool. Just wrestling Rutgers and wrestling having experience. They were fantastic in terms of the big time atmosphere. They do a great job and made us feel great, and so we try to do something like that every year. I try to see guys experience something different.
So as I'm looking through this, there's one thing that's jumped out at me as I've been helping doing some research here, and if I'm not mistaken, every single All-American from Pitt-Johnstown is from the state of Pennsylvania. Is that true or false?
Wow.
Because I think because the only two that jumped out of my records I actually have incorrect. Because
I would think you're right because I'll look real quick because I'll know in a second. But
yeah, because I have mislabeled where Isaac Greeley was from, but he's from
Port Allegheny.
Port Allegheny, yeah, and then I also mislabeled where Larry Roby was from. And
he's from Biglerville.
Yeah, so everybody on my list, my records indicate that of the 157 wrestlers that have won a medal, and some of those are multiple medals, the 157 medals, every single one of them have come from the Keystone State.
Yes.
That's
the only one, but his father was from the only one I think wasn't born there, but ended up was Sam Hanau. I think in 2000 I think he was born in Michigan, but his father was from Pittsburgh, and he ended up living with his father and coming to school here. But you're right, but he's still from Pennsylvania. But yeah, I never thought of that before.
It's just one thing, and I'm looking through these things, and I'm like,
yeah, every single one.
I mean, you told me you had a small recruiting footprint, and you explained it was just a couple districts earlier, but wow.
5, and I'll bet you there's not too many of those people out of 5, 6, and 7. I think Troy Barbush was, and Isaac Greeley and Tony Clark. They were like in.
They're District 3, I believe, right?
Yeah, District 3 was Manheim, and I think District 9 is where Isaac Greeley and them were from. But yeah, I mean, Pennsylvania for sure. That's hard to believe. And that's what we used to just say, Pennsylvania wrestling,
and that's with how many other schools to compete with for kids in PA?
Oh, we have the most wrestling schools in the state of all the states in the United States. And then you're still competing with the outskirts like the WVUs and all the ones right outside of the West Virginia schools and Ohio schools. So it's the toughest state to recruit, and there's no doubt about it. But it's deep. And I always knew that. So we're still getting good kids, and they're all from Pennsylvania.
Last two things I want to talk about. We've talked about Carlton Hasselrig. We talked about Jody Strittmatter, but one of the national champions that we don't get to talk about his future anymore is Nick Roberts, who passed away a couple years ago, and he came in from Ohio State, was a North Star kid, a lot of success at the age group levels. But what was it like having Nick on your program, and what did he mean to the team?
Nick was a unique individual. It just brings a smile to my face every time we think about him. And I still have him on my voicemail. I keep his voice around, listen to it. But just the thing I remember about Nick, tough. He was Johnstown tough. He was North Star tough. He wasn't afraid of anybody. I'm talking anybody. And And when Nick decided to come back, it took a little bit because he didn't want to wrestle anymore. He kind of, he went through that, syndrome. He was very high achiever and all the way through elementary school and high school. Had some tough experiences in college and just wasn't, making a lot of good choices himself. And so he came here and, kind of had to pick him up and dust him off and kind of start all over again. And I, expressed to him right from the beginning, I just want to see you make it as get a degree. And he started taking, physical education classes. And at the time, Shane Valco was our assistant. He was teaching, weight training classes and things like that. And, Nick started hanging around with Shane, got somebody who was a positive impact on him. And Shane came to see me one day and said, "Coach, Nick's talking about wrestling." I was like, "Well, that'd be great." And so, him, I think definitely his association with Shane brought him back to the program, and he came out for wrestling. He had to sit out a year, with the transfer rule then, and he wrestled in the second term. And holy smokes, I think the first time he wrestled in our first of his national duels, and he had to wrestle the kid from Nebraska. Was it Nebraska Kearney? Had the two-time national champion. I forget who it was in his weight class, 33-pounder. Tough kid.
DeShazer.
Yes. And here's how tough Nick was. And I said, "Hey, Nick, this kid you wrestle next is a two-time national champ." And he was like, I don't want to tell you. He was like, heck with this. He didn't roll right off his back. It was like, who cares, And I tried to instill that in a lot of my guys that, hey, he didn't care who was wrestling, didn't care. And I remember he beat him in double overtime, because no one could ride him. He could escape in 4 or 5 seconds on anybody. And so he went on to win a national title, and it was just sad. It was sad that what happened because he got hurt. He was only a junior. He got hurt the first match of the next year, and I think him being away from the program and the team, I just think him going through all those, operations and things that he had to go through, and it was tough, and I think he's had that his whole life in terms of the pain, and he always complained about that. So, but that's always the toughest thing, and my son and him were tight. Nick would come over for Sunday dinners and things, and he was just kind of young man that everybody, welcomed into their home, and just the kind of guy you wanted to take care of, and he was just doing so well. That was the sad part out of it, is he was, had things going in the right direction. And I think that injury just, when he got hurt and had to get, you go through, that again, surgeries and stuff like that, and that's what I think would, you start off with those, painkillers and that kind of stuff, and I think he's battled that off and on with, because of injuries and athletics and stuff like that. So, but, and I had great mom and dad. I got to know them, and I was the high school coach, and just was, it's just sad. It's the worst. That's the worst that happens to you as a coach. That's the worst. We came home from regionals, and I remember, I was driving away. My son wrestled, and he called me up and said, "Dad, there's a bunch of, police cars and ambulances outside Nick's apartment and stuff." And it was very, very surreal, very tough, and we just remember him, the guys on the team, and that's the toughest thing about coaching, because these young men do become like your sons, and it's just hard, just crushes you.
Lastly, 44 years at the helm. I'm sure you're getting this question a lot. How much longer are you going to do this? How much longer are you going to do this?
I don't know, Jason. I really don't know. I don't know. I have no idea. I'll tell you, it's real easy in my profession. When I start losing more than I'm winning, I'm gone. That's one thing, because the kids don't deserve that. But I don't have and I think someday I'll walk in here one day and say, you know what? It's time. And I'll probably do it more. It's time to give a young guy like me a chance how I got the chance, and so but I don't know. I feel great. God has blessed me with some, I've had some I've had through some tough times health-wise, but I'm fine now and doing well. And so like I said, right now I feel really good. I got a great assistant athletic director, and I got some great assistant coaches, and so I still enjoy practice. I love practice better than anything else. I love practice. Practice is the best part of the day. I enjoy practice more than anything. So it's like I said, it's the best part of the day. You don't get a better feeling than that. And then the anxiety before a match, I hate it. But the feeling after a match, after a win, the exhilaration, you can't beat it. I don't know where I would get this type of feelings. That the competition, of not knowing whether you're going to win or lose, and then come out victorious, and have a bunch of young men where you're just trying to bring out the best in them and see if we can do this. I love it. It's just the best thing in the world. I feel like I've been doing it, since I was 10 years old. Just started off with your boys on the corner. Hey, can my group of guys beat up these group of guys over there? Can our street go against their street? I tell people that's what the coaching's all about. It's just and if you were doing it then, and you were the leader of your gang hanging on the block, then you're going to be a good coach. So.
The record as it stands right now, 617 wins, 151 defeats, 5 ties. 44 years now, the all-time winningest coach in NCAA wrestling history, and it doesn't look like he's slowing down, folks. Coach Pecora, always a pleasure to talk to you, and I appreciate you spending the time with us and tell us some great stories about your unique wrestling coaching career.
Anytime, Jason. Love it.
The Short Time Wrestling Podcast is proudly outfitted by Compound Sportswear. Shirts, singlets, custom gear orders, everything you need. Call up Cliff and the crew at cmpteamwear.com. Hey, you know what? Did you like the show? You want to hit that subscribe button? MatTalkOnline.com/listen. Various different ways to subscribe to this show on your favorite podcatcher of choice. And if you're already subscribed and you already listen and you love the show and you want to support this show and this network, MatTalkOnline.com/join the team. Become a team member today.